Chapter 1-1. Soko but no love. Cold, harsh and punishing winter similar to the ones that came before it blanketed the city of Leningrad with snow, and much like a bride on wedding night, the city was clad in white. The snow made it entirely difficult to see or distinguish street markings, and even the streets themselves. Every light, every rooftop, and every tree could not escape Mother Nature's embrace, as it was all camouflaged by snow. It was quite the vista, minus, of course, the unforgiving temperature which would preclude most from even entertaining a thought of entering the outside. The streets were all but empty, completely devoid of liveliness. As the local expression goes, a good owner would never let their dog out in this weather. Despite all of this, however, a man found himself walking down the desolate stretch of the milky scenery. The man's garments matched the occasion, as he was wearing multiple layers, the top layer consisting of a heavy fur coat with a hue of brown alongside a woolen green scarf, while a black ushanka shielded the man's head from the cold. This man had a purpose, as he persevered through the snow. Elated, he walked, wanting nothing more than to bring the good news back to his home, where his child and wife awaited him. The good news was of political nature, no doubt, as the man occupied a high-ranking position in just such circles. A communist this wandering individual was. Through and through, with a smile on his face, he now finally neared his ultimate destination. Suddenly, a knock on a door, followed by a woman's inquiry. "Who is it?" the woman asked with compassion and anticipation in her voice. "Santa Claus. Who else do you think it is? It's your husband, of course. Now open up, before I become an imitation of a popsicle." "Come on now." Slight annoyance with a hefty dose of sarcasm egressed the man's mouth. "Oh, come on you, it can't be that cold." The woman was now rushing to unlock the door mechanism. "You want to switch places?" the male said with annoyance still present. It's open. Come on in, dear husband." The female stated once again with a great deal of compassion in her voice. "Finally, it would have been an embarrassing way to die there, my dear wife." The husband responded in complete jest while entering the flat. It was a modest two-bedroom flat at that, with many rugs spread throughout. The lighting was dim, and many candles were utilized instead of the more conventional mean of electricity. The decorations mainly consisted of pieces made by the woman of the house with the use of crochet, alongside some creations made of glass as well. The walls of the flat were clothed in political posters and pictures of the family that occupied the residence. "Well, never mind that. I have good news for you, my wife." The man said this as he began to disrobe and walk towards the kitchen. "Any vodka left?" Concern could be heard in his voice. "In the usual place, as it always is." The woman said lovingly, "What is the good news?" The new arrival then spent a considerable amount of time searching for the vodka, but once he did finally locate it, he answered his wife. "A celebratory drink, this will have to be for both yourself and mine. I have risen in the ranks of our great party, my dear wife. Long time coming, seemingly." He finished his sentiment with great satisfaction written all over his face as he began to warmly scan his wife. "What's wrong? You don't seem very happy for me?" He then quickly appended, and he was correct in his assumption, as the wife was nowhere near the elation that had devoured her husband. The woman spent some time pacing before uttering, "I am sorry. I thought that it might be concerning something else. Something more important than politics." The husband found himself in disbelief and required some time before he could resume the conversation. "More important than this? What can be more important than this?" The man said this with some frustration in his voice. Your son." The wife responded swiftly with her sight locked on her spouse. "Come on now. You seriously don't think I disagree with that now, do you?" he said with some relief in his voice. "Besides, our son is a sure bet for greatness. I can just feel it. Who knows? Maybe one day he will be like the great leader himself." The man stated this with not only relief, but also with vodka in his system, which most certainly helped. "Must everything be about politics with you, my dear husband?" the woman expressed with a hint of deprecation. "But everything is about politics, don't you see? Just look around you. All of these major changes, all of these major political movements, the revolution itself. What builds societies if not politics? After all, it shapes so much of our life, so much of our experience. It is all about politics, my dear wife, and there is no shame in our son becoming a part of that cycle. No shame. Surely you understand this." The husband reassured his most beloved, having his confidence greatly boosted by the flammable liquid. "It's a twisted game filled to the brim with criminals. I don't find solace in the possibility of our son joining this game. I am sorry, Peter, but is it really worth the risk?" The woman of the house spoke with considerable worry present in her tone, combating the notion her husband had so assertively presented. "Life isn't worth living if you don't take risks, my dear." Peter was not willing to concede ground. "Our son will grow up to be fully understanding of that concept. I promise you that. A great future awaits our boy, and we must do all that is necessary for that to happen. Well, enough of that for one day." The vodka started to overwhelm the man as it changed his mood, having an uplifting effect. "Speaking of the little one, I want to go see him. Is he asleep already?" Peter began to walk towards their son's bedroom with a purpose. "Not quite, Peter. He is reading in his room. You sure you want to disturb him?" Once again, a deal of concern permeated the wife's voice as she briskly followed her husband out of the kitchen. "Well, of course I do, Anastasia. Who else is going to tell him the good news?" The father said this as he found himself face to face with the door to his son's room. He then proceeded to knock on the door. Enough alcohol has entered the husband's system at this point, so he raised his voice ever so slightly and cheerily said, "Open up now, Alexander. Alexander the Great, or should I say, the great Alexander Sokol. Summer of 1954. Love, Peter and Anastasia Sokolov, you are found guilty of political treason by the state. The appropriate punishment for such crime is death." The judge's words reverberated the great hall that was once used as a cathedral, but now fulfilled another purpose. It was a place where judgment was carried out. This was where so many men and women have met their end by the hand of the Soviet state, and now little Sasha Sokolov's parents were soon to be added to that list. The hall itself was filled with many from different villages and cities, some friends and some foes, yet not one had the power to prevent the harsh verdict from being carried out. Some of the old cathedral decorations could still be seen throughout the large hall. Sasha Sokolov himself sat in the back of the hall, anticipating what's to follow. And although the Brumal season was no longer, the judge barked out words as cold as any winter. "You had so much potential, Peter, so much potential with the party, yet you became the enemy. You disappoint so, you are truly a disgrace." The judge's face was overwhelmed with disgust. "You can't do this! We have been set up!" Peter shouted, but his outburst was in vain as he was abruptly interrupted by the police inside the hall. The guards subdued the couple after some commotion did break out inside the walls of the hall, but soon enough all was back to normal, and the locale was once again a place of tranquility. The couple was removed from the immediate room, and the session neared its end. All that was left now is to decide the boy's fate. The judge continued. The boy, clearly too young to be complicit in the crimes of his parents, is to be placed inside an orphanage, where he will remain until he reaches a certain age. If the boy is found to be uncooperative, he will be placed in the juvenile penitentiary, and in the case of such endeavours continuing, the boy will finally be sent to the gulags. The judge pounded the gavel with such force that it produced almost a deafening sound. The boy was in the room while the verdict was carried out, but showed no signs of fear or even concern. The young and brilliant Sasha Sokolov had already figured out his near future quite some time ago. The youngin was not at all surprised by what had transpired inside the judgment hall. "Bring the boy to his parents for one last time so that he can say his goodbyes," said the judge to the nearest guard. The guard obliged. The unfortunate child was shown to an isolated room inside the compound where he found both of his parents. This room was very much akin to an interrogation room, as it was quite small in size, with only 2 chairs and a table occupying it. Both Peter and Anastasia were devastated, but silent. Their mood did change drastically, however, once they finally got to see their son. "Sasha!" the boy's mother cried and shouted while embracing her son. Severe agony veiled her words. "We are sorry, Sasha. We are so sorry." The mother was just barely able to speak. "Listen to me, Sasha." The father took over while grabbing the boy's shoulders. "You have to be strong, you understand? I know that your future might seem uncertain, my little boy, but do not fear the uncertainty. Do not dare fear the challenge that awaits you, Alexander." Peter stated this, trying his best to keep the tears from pouring down. The son, however, while showing affection to his parents, remained unaffected by dread, while another emotion planted its seed inside the little one's soul. That emotion was hatred. The 9-year-old was intelligent enough to fully understand just why all of this had occurred and why the state deemed such actions necessary. Understanding he might have been, deep hatred had now sprouted its roots inside the young man's heart. "We will always love you, my child. Please do not forget that, and please forgive us, Sasha. Forgive us," the mother said while still crying and embracing the boy. Before too long, the guard who had led Sasha to the room in the first place had returned to take him back. Once he made his entrance into the room, he intently neared the boy and grabbed him by the hand and said, "It's time to go now. Let go of the child," the guard said in a stern voice. Anastasia found this command hard to accommodate, but having little choice in the matter, did finally oblige. Reluctantly, she let go of the boy and said, "I love you one last time." As the son was now being escorted out of the room, the father looked at him and uttered the words, "Goodbye, Alexander the Great." The boy left the room, and as the door closed, all that was heard were the sounds of a weeping woman as they resonated throughout the corridor. The youngster was escorted down the hall and out of the building, much like a prisoner would be. In the child's mind, harrowing thoughts dominated, yet Alexander's visage remained unabashed. Once the older one and the young one made it to the transport car, the guard spoke. "Get in, kid. I won't be going along. And kid," the guard said while looking directly at Sasha, "good luck." Silence consumed the air as the boy boarded the car. The trip to the orphanage was rather long and filled with scenery the young child was quite accustomed to. When the driver did finally arrive at the orphanage, Sasha was greeted by an older gentleman who appeared to be a guard by ways of his demeanour, but not so much by his clothing. Seemingly, the man was not on shift at the time of the arrival. His face was visibly aged, and a head full of grey hair matched him quite well. Wrinkles and brown eyes were just some of the characteristics that Sasha was able to gather through the window of the car, alongside the man's moustache, which was well-groomed and lush. The gentleman's voice was a raspy bass, and much like the hair, it too matched him quite so. "What is this? Why wasn't I informed about this new arrival?" said the older gentleman with some annoyance in his voice. "Sorry, Dmitri, I have no control over that." The driver responded in a hearty manner. "Well, never mind that now. Nobody lets me know anything any more in this place, it seems. So much for being a warden. Anyway, who is the kid?" Dmitri looked inside the cabin and saw the child. He scrutinized his whole appearance from head to toe. Dmitri was surprised by just how composed the kid looked, as this was quite the unusual occurrence. Alexander Sokolov is the name. His parents were executed for treason not too long ago. He didn't cry a single time on the way here. The driver said this while presiding in the same state of surprise, much like Dmitri himself. "All right, let's get this going then. Come on, kid. Climb out of the car now. Processing and all of that await you. Hurry up now." Dmitri's tone was not one of deprecation, but almost one of encouragement. The little Sasha was not so receptive, however. "Easy for you to say, old man. Your parents weren't the ones who got executed." Sasha said this in a mocking tone. "Guess again, kid." The man responded while staring the kid down. "I wasn't always a warden here, you know," the old gentleman added, smiling amicably. "I am sorry," Sasha said with full sincerity. "Old stories, kid. Don't worry about it. It's in the past now." Sasha did finally exit the car and proceeded to follow Dmitri down to the main entrance. As the two made their way to the destination, Sasha began to survey the area surrounding the building itself. The whole scenery was rather decrepit. Much time has passed without any maintenance on the place. That much was blatant. The path to the orphanage was one through a large metal gate and was accompanied by a short interval of forestry. The trees, much like the building itself, were not in order and had been long forgotten. The brick path that led to the main building itself had many of the bricks missing, leaving Sasha to carefully maneuver around the empty spaces to avoid hurting himself. Despite all the decay that surrounded the boy, the walk was still filled with quite the scenery, haunting as it may have been. Silence once again filled the air while the two were traversing the path. Finally, the big man and the little boy reached the main entrance, but before the large steel doors of the building stood a statue of an angel, which instantly grabbed Sasha's attention. The angel's face was mired in sadness, while its wings were spread wide open. The statue stood there, completely unfit with the rest of the scenery, as this was the only construction that hasn't yet been affected by age. The statue looked relatively new, and had been taken care of, certainly. At the base of the statue, the placard read, "The Angel of Guidance. Welcome to the Wings of Guidance Orphanage, kid," Dmitri said in a genuinely welcoming tone. "It's not much I know, but it sure beats sleeping on the streets," he added, smiling. "Why don't we wait and let me be the judge of that?" Sasha responded with some jest, but was still mainly mocking the old man. The warden looked at Sasha and laughed, but then continued to speak. "You know, I like you, kid. You seem different from the rest. You are strong, you haven't cried a bit. It's commendable. You sure they haven't executed your parents once before? Maybe you have experience in the matter." Dmitri said this as he chuckled to himself. "Inappropriate timing for this kind of humour, don't you think, old man?" Sasha said this, dropping the mocking tone altogether. "I know you can take it, kid. I know you are strong. Still, though, I do apologize. My timing certainly could have been better." The man stated once again with full sincerity in his voice. "I do have a name, you know." The mocking tone was back as Sasha started his ascension up the stairs that led to the main building. Dmitri followed the boy closely while continuing the conversation. "Yes, Alexander Sokolov, wasn't it?" the older gentleman inquired. "It sure is, and don't forget it, old man." Sasha said this half in jest and half in solemnity. "Don't worry, Sasha. After the impression you have made on me, I certainly will not forget your name, boy. Now let's hurry and get you processed. It is going to be getting dark soon." The duo made it up the protracted stairway and progressed to enter the steel doors. As the doors opened while producing an ear-piercing sound, a vista most closely resembling a prison was revealed. Before the man and the boy stood a check-in station, which was partly surrounded by glass and fencing. Behind the desk sat a woman, and she was more than happy to start the process. The check-in procedure barely took any time, and as the two started walking around the building, Sasha realized that the situation on the outside was very much fitting with the dilapidation present on the inside. The walls were peeling, the paint was smudged beyond recognition, and the floors had chunks missing. Sasha noticed political placards that were plastered throughout the orphanage, alongside signs of no running, no hiding food, and no lying to the staff, which were seen posted often. The orphanage itself was unusually quiet, though this did not come as a surprise to Sasha, but rather as a relief. Dmitri finished with a walk-through of the place near the designated room of the new arrival, turned to the kid, and started to speak once more. "There aren't that many children here, Sasha, so you won't have to share a room with anyone. Good news, right?" Dmitri said, while a smile began to form. "Not as good as my parents still being alive, but I will take what I can get." Sasha retorted with full jest. "You sure you are 9, kid? I feel like I am talking to an adult here. Maybe you have a physical condition." Laughing, Dmitri said, but then quickly continued. I know. My humour is in poor taste. I just couldn't help myself. Anyway, it is dark now, and it is very much bedtime. Breakfast is at 7, followed by physical activity. The full schedule can be seen in the gathering hall. You will see it tomorrow. Good night, Sasha." Dmitri finished and started to slowly walk away. First night at the orphanage was everything that the boy had expected. Silent and cold night with guards roaming the halls, whistling. The tune of the whistle provided some sort of comfort for the boy as he struggled to fall asleep. The boy instead would daydream about the possibility of escaping the orphanage one day and of what would await him outside these walls. Eventually, tiredness would overtake the young man as he finally closed his eyes and fell asleep. Sasha, Sasha. A voice is heard repeating those same words over and over. The reverberation is unlike anything else, as the intensity and the pressure to the boy's ears it provides is unmatched. The voice is one of a female, yet a deep overtone cradles it. This voice is hardly a friendly one, and is almost demonic in nature, in fact. Sasha turns around to confront the unknown, and before him stand two figures, completely shrouded by darkness, with only their silhouettes discernible. Alexander now speaks the man with the same dark overtone present. "Don't you recognize us, young one?" Sasha realizes at this very moment that he stands facing his parents, his dead parents. Light laughter is heard exiting the man's mouth as the two figures now begin to bare themselves of the darkness surrounding them. And as the pair finally step into the light, a macabre sight is revealed to the young boy. The man is missing an eye with a clear bullet hole entry, with a profusion of blood still very much present, and even more surprising, still fresh. The woman now stands in the light with a noose around her neck, while the neck itself is visibly elongated and quite emaciated as one would expect after a hanging was carried out. The woman begins to speak. "You haven't forgotten us now, have you, Sasha?" She laughs immediately after finishing her remark. The man takes over shortly after. "You haven't forgotten your destiny now, have you, boy?" No laughter is heard from the dead father on this occasion, but he does continue. "You must see your potential to the end, Sasha. You must punish those who have made the present as it is. You must use your talents to restore balance, young one, to restore order." The man speaks in a sinister tone with a great amount of seriousness present as his single-eyed gaze perforates Sasha's soul. The boy himself is unable to respond and is completely enthralled by what is evincing in front of him. "Fulfill your destiny, Sasha," continues the woman. This is the last sentence uttered by the duo as they begin to walk backwards into darkness once more in synchrony. After the two are fully devoured by the darkness, a certain thunderous sound is audible. Loud thud was audible. It was a guard knocking on Sasha's door. "Wake up! Wake up! Your first night here, and you have already overslept. Come on now! What kind of impression will that leave?" The guard shouted, however, not in anger and not even in frustration. It was almost playful, the tone. "Take a bath and make your way to the cafeteria, Sokolov. And make it quick. I don't want to come back here again." This time a more serious tone accompanied his words. Sasha did as was requested and made haste. A quick bath followed by a speedy walk to the cafeteria. Once arrived at the cafeteria, Sasha was greeted by Dmitri himself. "How is Mr. Sokolov doing today?" Dmitri said with a smile on his face already formed. "Aside from the dead parents, I don't think I'm doing too poorly." Sasha responded with sarcasm present. "You still on about that parent thing?" The warden stated as his words produced the aroma of warmth, adding to the pre-existing sense of the current locale. "I only kid, of course. You must forgive my humour, little one." Dmitri finished, retaining the tender tone. "I already did, Mr. Dmitri. I see you are in your proper attire today," Sasha said as he scanned Dmitri's garments. "Well, you know what they say, kid. Women love a man in a uniform." The smile was still very much present on the warden's face. "I am 9 years old, Mr. Dmitri. Nobody has ever said anything even remotely that close to me," Sasha said with sarcasm once more. "Yes, well, we will continue this conversation when you grow up then. Get in the lunch line now. I still have some things to show you." Dmitri said this as he started to walk towards the lunch line himself.
"Any recommendations for breakfast?"
Sasha said while smiling ever so slightly. Dmitri responded with a chuckle of his own. "This isn't a restaurant, you know. Now hurry, boy. We don't have all day." Dmitri finished the exchange in a more professional tone. The cafeteria was one of a respectable size, and once was used to feed many more denizens than were currently lodged inside the building. The layout was made to accommodate 2 separate lines, but considering the low number of kids who were at the orphanage, only one line was utilized. Sasha walked to the formation and stood behind another kid who looked rather nervous. It was as if he was scared or even intimidated by Sasha. Sasha noticed this immediately. "No reason to fear." "You have a name?" Sasha said, trying to calm the boy down. "My name, I am hungry. Please, I don't want to talk." The kid responded even more nervous than before. "Hungry, huh? What an interesting name. Are you from Hungary by any chance? You know, the country of hungry people?" Sasha jokingly said. The kid in front of him responded with laughter as his state of nervousness appeared to ease. The conversation did end rather abruptly, however, as both made it to the front of the line. After the breakfast finished, Sasha rushed to find the old man Dmitri once again, but was intercepted by the guard who first woke him earlier in the day. "Where you off to, little one?" asked the guard, sounding much more like an investigator in tone. "I am looking for Dmitri. He said he would show me something after we eat." Sasha responded in a regular voice. "Is that what is listed on the program on the wall there? Running around looking for Dmitri after you eat?" The guard nodded his head towards the flyer mentioned prior. "Not sure. I did not read it." Sasha said confidently, "What's wrong? Don't you know how to read?" The guard responded with condescension. "I bet I can read better than you." Sasha returned the favor. "Oh, is that right now?" The guard continued with a mocking tone. "It might just be the case." Third man's voice was now heard from behind the boy and the guard. It was Dmitri. "This young one is quite something else, as I have discovered. It really would not surprise me that he does read better than you, Stanislav," the warden stated firmly as he approached the two. "At any rate, young Sasha is correct. I did request to see him after breakfast was done." The honcho concluded authoritatively. "As you wish, sir." The defeated guard spoke his part and walked off to rush the rest of the children into the gymnasium. "I could have taken him. You didn't need to intervene, old man." The old man laughed at Sasha's joking manner. "Yes, well, perhaps I was saving him and not you then." Dmitri chuckled. "I have read your file last night, Sasha, and it's something rather astounding. Your academic achievements are quite something. The private school you were enrolled in before the unfortunate event with your parents took place shows you as their top student, and your marks were incredible. It would be quite a waste for you to not continue your path while you are here." Dmitri spoke with conviction in a soft tone. "I am inside an orphanage, Dmitri. This isn't exactly a private school." Sasha responded with his trademark sarcasm. "Yes, I am well aware of that fact, and I realize that our teachers aren't exactly the same caliber as the ones you have had in the past, but our library is nothing to be scoffed at. And I can always pick up more books for you from the city," the warden said while looking around. "What are you saying exactly, Mr. Dmitri?" Sasha asked the older man with genuine confusion on his face. "I am saying that you do not belong here, young one. Someone as intelligent as you are should not be inside of an orphanage. I am simply trying to make a wrong into a right here." Dmitri sincerely said this as he knelt down to eye level with the boy. "I have instructed for you to spend most of your time in my quarters, where you will have access to the library and where you can be tutored on a more personal level. You mustn't waste your potential, my little friend." Dmitri articulated with overwhelming compassion. "I didn't realize that some people still had a warm heart in this cold country." The boy spoke in a completely serious tone. Dmitri laughed at the boy's previous statement. "I guess some hearts are just too hot to freeze, huh?" Dmitri said while rising back to his feet. "Come on now, let me show you my quarters." Autumn 1957. As years passed and seasons changed, Dmitri proved to be a man of his word. The young Sasha was provided with ample tutoring and had conquered every book that Dmitri was able to bring him, both fiction and none. Sasha, albeit an orphan, did appear to be in good hands. Throughout his time in the orphanage, Sasha was not quite able to establish any connections with the other kids, since he was quite far beyond them intellectually. This, however, was only satisfactory to the young boy himself, as he was fully content with investing most of his time reading and spending the rest with Dmitri. Dmitri and the boy grew close, and a bond between the two formed. Sasha was afforded certain privileges as a result, such as later bedtimes and isolated breakfasts, lunches and dinners. A tale of favoritism it was indeed, but one that could be easily understood. Dmitri, after all, never had any children of his own, and envisioned Sasha as just that. Additionally, Dmitri showed the boy how to use a gun and how to defend himself should the situation ever require it. You see, Dmitri had a past with the military and even the police, not to mention the time he spent on the streets. Dmitri had fully assumed a position of a mentor to the 12-year-old kid. The two spent many of days together, and on one of those days a peculiar conversation took place. "You finished with another book there, boy? What you got this time?" Dmitri inquired as he noticed the child in his quarters upon entering. Dmitri was not aware of the boy's presence at the time, so he did sound somewhat surprised. The warden neared the boy and looked at the book's cover. "Ah, The Great Escape. That's quite the read right there. Now tell me, boy, are you planning on escaping?" he said while laughing in obvious jest. "Yes, actually." The child looked at Dmitri and responded with full seriousness. "I really do think about it often, Dmitri. I've even concocted a plan of sorts." He ceased with confidence. Didn't quite expect that answer, I won't lie. Dare to share your plan?" Dmitri asked the daring youngster with genuine interest. "Ventilation shafts. From what I have seen, it is the only way to get to the roof without being spotted, and since all of the gates are locked and tightly watched by security on the ground floor, the roof seems to be the only viable option." The young boy shared his intentions and details without any hesitation, trusting Dmitri fully. An interesting idea, no doubt, yet I am afraid I have to spoil it. The ventilation shafts are far too dangerous to use. You see, young Mr. Sokolov, there are plenty of fans throughout the shafts that you simply won't be able to disable. It would not be a pretty sight if you were to go through one while it is on, I am sure you can imagine. The warden spoke to the child in a manner most professorial. Not to mention, even if you were to make it to the roof, your options there are quite non-existent. There isn't anywhere you can jump to, and no safe jump distance exists, as far as the ground is concerned. Trust me, boy, I am not saying this just to dissuade you, but rather to save your life." The man finished speaking with utmost assertiveness. The youngster looked back at the old man with a physiognomy of complete devastation. "I really thought it was a good plan," said the young boy while sadness infected his tone. Dmitri noticed the child's dismay and continued to speak. "You didn't hear this from me, but this location was once used as a hospital, and you know how older hospitals use to transport the dead bodies, don't you?" the old man said revealingly. "Underground tunnels?" the boy shouted in elation. "I thought that they might be around, but I just didn't see the access points." "Yes. Well, the access points had to be hidden. After all, we don't want anyone escaping now, do we? In truth, not even all the staff know about this. The conversion did take place some time ago, even before I was here as a kid," Dmitri said reassuringly. "Well," said the boy invitingly. Dmitri chuckled once more and responded, "Well, let's just say that Santa Claus is going to have difficulty getting inside these walls." Dmitri's tone was revealing still. "Chimney?" The boy's voice was once again blanketed by elation. "Of course." Dmitri remained silent, but a large smile began to form across his face. On that SME night and many following ones, young Sasha utilized his freedom of movement granted by Dmitri himself to confirm the newly learned information. It did not take long for the brilliant boy to locate the right chimneys, the ones that led to the underground tunnels. Sasha selected a chimney most distant from the majority of the staff. Day by day, while shrouded by night, Sasha hammered down the chimney walls, one little bit at a time, using the tools he had borrowed from shop class. Sasha had to be meticulous with this endeavour, as he could not afford the risk of any guards, or anyone else for that matter, noticing the structural changes made to the chimney. Since this construct was located out of the way of most guards, he used paint to help camouflage the dents that had been made due to the young boy's efforts. This process was quite painstaking as the wall of the smokestack was hardly thin. Reinforced in order to prevent escape, this barrier proved to be quite the formidable opponent for the young boy. Sasha would often make distracting noises to either lure the guards away or to mask the hammer hits. With every calculation and consideration in place, Sasha struggled greatly to overcome the wall. Fate itself, however, seemed to rush the boy as a truly unfortunate event took place on the night of October 12th of 1957. Dmitri lost a battle to death herself. Dmitri was found in his office on that night, prostrate on the floor, having just recently suffered cardiac arrest. Dmitri's story ended far too quickly for the boy and had left him drowning in an ocean of convoluted emotions. From anger to sadness, from hatred to guilt, the boy felt it all, but most importantly, he felt the need to make his escape ever so swifter. You see, Sasha was fully aware of just who the successor to Dmitri would be, and just how much of a living hell the little one's life in the orphanage would become under the new man's supervision. Sasha used the commotion stirred up by his dear friend's passing to make his final move. No longer having the ability to afford caution, the young boy hammered on that wall with all the might that his little arms could muster up. Sweating profusely but not giving up, the boy would bash the wall down like it was his mortal enemy. And at this specific moment in his life, it most certainly was. Smack after smack. Finally a breakthrough. A crack in the armour, a hole in the wall was now made. The boy capitalized and continued the unrelenting assault up until the barrier gave way fully. Sasha was victorious, but there was hardly any time to celebrate. The boy now saw what was on the other side of the wall, and it was as dark as the deepest of cosmos. Of course, young Sasha was hardly fazed by this as he came prepared. He pulled out a flashlight and proceeded into the void. Shining the light at his feet and unaware of his surroundings, Sasha took a risk and started running. He fell once, twice, thrice, but none were enough to preclude the boy's daring escape. With the light still firmly at his side, as it was his only friend now, Sasha continued the run. Turn after turn he was guided by the signs, which luckily for him had not been yet removed. All signs led to the egress, and Sasha began to feel unstoppable as he neared his final destination. The proverbial light at the end of the tunnel was hardly proverbial any longer, as it was almost within reach. Sasha was mesmerized by the shinning whilst closing in on the light's embrace. Out of the tunnel, over the fence and through the forest, a welcomed change of scenery it was, as the boy was now running faster than he had ever done before. Thick forest, scattered branches, and animal cries were not enough to stop Sasha as he felt indomitable. He carried on a full day, up until he finally made it to the nearest village by the name of Elabuga. Sasha was once again victorious. He stopped to take a break, reached inside his pocket, and pulled out a token. This was something to remember Dmitri by. Something that the young boy decided to take without letting the old man know. It was the 20 years of service in the Wings of Guidance Orphanage medal, and on its face it read, "May the angel of guidance take you under her wings." Dmitri took the young boy under his wings. Perhaps one day Sasha would return the favour. Sasha glanced at the medal once more before putting it back in his pocket and then progressing to the village entrance. Chapter 1-2. Sokobot still no love, a new page turned, and a new life surely awaited the young boy now. Turning back was not an option, with juvenile penitentiary being the punishment for Sasha's dramatic escape. Sasha persevered onward to the village, as puzzling thoughts ran through his mind. ODIOD TAR OS KCHC YEET NWTS RIF EHT EB DELUO SITE DNA MROF NICOL EMOC YILIRUS LU LENOS REP EGANA PRO EHT NINA PKIOD YAWADIOD. Unable to elicit a proper response to the self-imposed questions, Sasha continued to walk the entry street of the village. The village itself was one of a modest size. It began with an industrial section, with factory plants scattered throughout, albeit most were no longer in operation. This, however, was not the case for all of the plants, as Sasha noticed a light inside one of them, accompanied by commotion resonating from within. Sasha quickly manoeuvred past this section to avoid any inquiries into his presence, and continued to what appeared to be a segment designated for a bazaar. It was late enough so all of the stands were closed. Lucky the little one was. The young boy made it past this portion of the land with ease as well, however. The boy now found himself face to face with the residential section of the village. In here there were shops, bus stops, and of course, housing. Interaction with the locals was now inevitable. Despite it being late, many lights inside the houses could be seen. Luckily for Sasha, not too many street lights were in functional order, so he took advantage of the night's cloak. Sasha did his best to stay furtive as he traversed the roads, but the unavoidable did finally occur. "Hey, you little boy, you lost?" shouted a local resident while positioned behind Sasha. It was a male of middle age. He did not appear to be an enforcement figure of the village judging by his garments, but certainly sounded like one to Sasha. The man himself was wearing a long grey coat with black pants and a rather fancy hat. This man was definitely not poor, as Sasha noticed a golden watch strapped across his wrist. The older male started out from quite the distance, but as he slowly approached Sasha, some facial features became visible. Long dark hair stuck out from underneath the fancy hat, while the beard was minimal and well-groomed. The individual had green eyes, a petite nose, and a baritone voice of considerable clarity. "No, just heading home is all," Sasha responded with confidence in his voice. "All right, be careful out there, kid. It's late." "Why are you even out?" asked the local, unwilling to let Sasha go. "I was just trying to make it to the shops before they close, but I was not able to." Sasha was able to come up with a lie on the spot with no hesitation. "Well, of course they are all closed. Don't you know what time it is?" The local resident responded almost mockingly. "Sorry, I am new here, I am visiting." Once again Sasha said with confidence. "Visiting who? Your family? What house number?" The local resident's inquest resembled one of a detective. Even before the curious one finished his torrent of inquisition, Sasha was already formulating the correct answers that would be best suited for the current predicament the boy found himself in. Inside the boy's head, questions began to bounce around once more. Iman Apu Ekam DNA ELIOD Noiserga Hu Rus Nai OD Yawa Nur Ilpmis Suj Iod. Alexander chose the second option. "You think this is your business, why exactly?" Sasha said in a scolding tone. The man's facial expression changed rapidly, shifting from neutral to bewildered. He clearly was not expecting such arbitrary display of aggression from a child. "I just want to make sure that—" The man started to respond to the boy's previous statement, but was interrupted by the child mid-sentence. "House number 73 is where I am staying, mister," the boy said with complete and utter assertiveness. The male continued to reside in a state of bewilderment and conceded his line of inquiry. "Well, all right, kid. Just make sure you make it back safe, okay?" His tone was overtaken by genuine concern on this occasion. "Sure thing, mister," Sasha said in his regular and relaxed voice, and started walking towards where House 73 would be located at. Sasha's acumen has carried him through once again, as House 73 might just have been the most correct answer. You see, Sasha had noticed the layout of the housing section upon first entering it. This gave the young boy an understanding of the streets and the foundation necessary to provide the right answer. The houses were built 10 in a row, numbered from the highest to the smallest, separated by streets and other paths, before another row of housing began. Had Sasha provided the wrong answer, perhaps a smaller number, the man would have just insisted on walking the boy home, since a certain amount of concern was present in the man's voice. Had Sasha given a higher number, he would run into the possibility of the house not even existing, as Sasha did not know just how many rows of housing were in this section. 7 rows down and 3 houses up, the man was fully trustful of the boy's words. Sasha came out on top again. Another battle won, but the war was hardly finished. The boy's next step would be to figure out just what he would have to become in order to survive. Nishkruna Avoba Eightfoa Sparep. The child's head was now nothing short of an echo chamber. With little time, a plan did formulate inside the young boy's mind. The youngster remembered the industrial area and realized that it would be the best fit to spend the night in. He also recollected of the bazaar area, as it would provide the perfect source for food. Most stands in the bazaar were just simple expressions of wood. Crafting, but some were enveloped by a sliding metal door secured with a lock at the bottom. Sasha, given the opportunity and the right amount of time, was fully confident in his ability to pick that lock. The opportunity was now, as the bazaar was closed for the night, and no time was better than the present. Sasha postulated that there would be a tool he could possibly use in the shutdown factories to pry open the lock on the sliding door inside the bazaar, so he made his way back to the industrial section. On the way there, however, another unexpected encounter took place, only this time it was another child that approached Sasha. "Who are you? I haven't seen you around here before. What's your name?" The kid requested the information out of Sasha in a pleasant manner. Before Sasha provided an answer, he took the time to scrutinize the inquisitor's appearance. The kid was an older one, a 15-year-old by the looks of it. He was dressed in rather poor-quality clothing, which made Sasha believe that he might have been a street urchin himself. This belief was further reinforced when Sasha scanned the young teen's face and saw that it was covered in dirt. The kid had blue eyes and an unusually deep voice for someone of his age. Additionally, the teenager was rather tall. Sasha, believing that he made the right deduction based on the information he was able to perceive, took an approach of honesty, unexpected as it may have seemed. "I'm not from here. I just got here, in fact, not that long ago," Sasha answered earnestly. "What are you doing here, then?" the 15-year-old now asked in a more concerning tone. Sasha picked up on the boy's distress and aggressed on him. Sasha took a gamble. "I am here to stop young boys like you from stealing things inside that bazaar," Alexander said in the most accusatory ways. "Stealing? Bazaar? Young boys? You are younger than me? What the hell, kid?" The 15-year-old now found himself playing defense. "And you think this will matter to the local authorities when I turn you in?" Sasha was not letting up. "What makes you think I was going to steal something from the bazaar?" The 15-year-old spoke as his voice started to tremble. Fear began to seep through. "The lock-pick inside your pocket, for one," Sasha answered, assertively, quite the astute observation, as it was entirely true. Out of the young man's pocket, a set of picks was just barely visible. The young man quickly rushed to depress the lock picks down lower into his pocket. First, that wasn't The 15-year-old was now scrambling for words. You know how to use it? Sasha did not let the teen finish his sentence. The bigger boy's facial expression now displayed confusion, but was quickly replaced by relief when he noticed Sasha starting to form smile. Wait, you aren't actually going to tell anyone then, are you? The boy asked in a much calmer tone. Only if you don't know how to use it. Sasha amused himself seemingly and chuckled. So, do you? Or don't you? First, I am not that good at it. It's not actually mine, the boy said with truthfulness. Perhaps I should try then? Sasha was now speaking in a more playful tone. Are you serious? Genuine confusion accompanied the teen's words. Of course I am. Sasha responded with no reprieve, fully confident. So, you aren't with the authorities then? The boy asked once more. Sasha laughed at this inquiry and then responded, What do you think? I am 12 years old. Sasha's tone fluctuated from the amusement. Well, I don't know. You just sounded so convincing. Before the teen was able to finish his full thought, Sasha once again interrupted him. So, which one of these stands have you scouted? Sasha's inquest surprised the teen. After a short interval of silence, the teen turned around and, while still cloaked in quietude, pointed to a stand at the back of the bazaar. After this motion, the 15-year-old broke the silence. That one, it's at the back and looks like an older lock. Should be easier to handle. I spent some time picking it out, the urchin said proudly. Well, what are we waiting for then? Sasha responded instantly once again as the two boys started to make their way to the back of the bazaar. Little bits of conversation were exchanged as they proceeded on their way until finally the two arrived at their destination. Sasha was the first one to speak. Hand the pick to me and stand guard. We don't need to be getting caught on my first try. That would be embarrassing, Sasha said as he extended his arm to procure the lockpick. All right. Simple enough answer from the older boy while he handed the pick over to Sasha. Do you even know what you are doing with this thing? Watch me open this faster than you could, Sasha responded, overrun with confidence. One armed monkey could open it faster than I can. I already told you I am not good with this thing at all. I just hope you are. The 15-year-old was honest with his answer. Watch the professional work then. While in the process of meddling with the lock, Sasha spoke up once more. You know, I just realized I never asked your name. He inquired with his attention reserved fully for the padlock. Arkadij is my name. And yours? The teen said as he spun his head in all directions looking out for possible trouble. Alexander, Sasha answered swiftly. Good. Now we know each other's names then, Arkadij said with a bit of sarcasm, continuing to survey the area. Yeah, well, I got better news than even that for you, said Sasha as he directed Arkadij's vision to the lock, which was now open. What you think? Faster than that monkey you talked about, or what? Sasha said while chuckling ever so slightly. Must be my lucky day. The teen responded, grand relief nearest him. With the metal door no longer a barrier, the two entered the kiosk stand. Shortly after, the duo found themselves in quite the jubilation, as this little kiosk contained nothing but foods. Potatoes and potato chips, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, and much more. Lady Luck smiled down upon the boys on this day. What are you doing? Put that back down. Sasha yelled at Arkadij once he saw him pack the bag full of potatoes and vegetables. If you take this much, they will surely notice and bring in the authorities. We will never be able to come back to this place again. take a little at a time so that we can keep coming back night after night. Makes sense, right? Sasha explained this, much like a pedagogue would to their students. Yeah, I just got excited, that's all. Sorry, Sasha, said the teen, in a disconcerted tone. No worries. Now grab a little of everything and let's make our way out of here. Do you have a place we can stay? Sasha asked the boy, thinking that the question may have very well been rhetorical while expecting a certain response. Yes, at the abandoned factory not too far from here, Arkadij answered rapidly. Sasha was correct in his presumption, as he too considered the factory. Not to mention the light he saw prior, which occupied a window inside of the factory. It was highly likely that the culprit responsible for this light now stood in front of Sasha. You got it all, Arkadij? Sasha asked his newly met friend whilst beginning to make his way out of the stand. Let's go then. He quickly appended, not even giving a chance for Arkadij to respond. The boys egressed the kiosk, and Sasha proceeded to lock the door. He took his time as to make it look as if nothing was ever done to the lock. Sasha took great scrupulousness as he first opened the lock, thinking ahead, making sure that no marks were left so that the forced entry could never be discovered. Once the task was done, both of the boys started walking towards the abandoned factory. Sasha's intellect surprised Arkadij, so a conversation sprung as a result concerning this very topic. So, are you like super smart or something? Arkadij asked, filled with intrigue. I am not sure. I have heard that said about me often, though. Sasha answered. It means it's true then, doesn't it? If everyone keeps saying the same thing and what not? Arkadij inquired as a student would of a pedagogue. Not always the case, friend. After a chuckle, and while in motion, the wonderkind stated, a lie told often enough becomes the truth. Haven't you heard that?
You know who said it, Arkadij? The little Alexander playfully inquired of his comrade.
No idea, Sasha. Arkadij answered sincerely, looking down at the ground as the two remained in motion. It was Vladimir Lenin. Sasha sounded like an instructor once more. Who is that? Arkadij said in complete fascination. Perhaps a story for another day, Arkadij, instructor. Sokolov stated, astounded to his core. We are here, I assume. This does look like a factory. The two boys now have stopped in front of a large building. This was, in fact, the factory. Arkadij waved the young Sasha to follow him, as they were not able to use the main entrance, instead having to utilize the back door, which was broken into and had remained unlocked ever since. The two had made it around the building, which did take a considerable amount of time, climbed up the ladder, and once on the second floor of the factory, proceeded to make their entry. Unsurprisingly, this factory was used to manufacture vehicles and weaponry for the war. None of the equipment was in operational order, however, or at least it very much seemed that way, as time has left a mark on this construction alongside the equipment inside. Rusted machinery, peeling walls, and more political posters were the main elements of this paysage. The descent down the ladder was a lengthy one, since the factory was of a considerable size. In fact, this was the largest one in the village. The boys took great caution while walking around the conveyor belts and tools, which were scattered all over the floor. The lighting, after all, was less than stellar. The trip wasn't fully complete, however, as the main destination was the office that once belonged to the factory manager, but now was in the hands of the young Arkadij. The pair of boys finally made it to the office and proceeded to enter. Upon entry, Sasha could not resist the inclination for humour. Nice office, Arkadij. Needs a little work, I guess, but not bad still. When did they promote you to manager anyway? Sasha spoke entirely in jest while scrutinizing the office space. I am surprised you are able to joke so much, Sasha. Arkadij responded whilst completely ignoring the aforementioned comment. Someone has to do it. You know, to lift morale and all. I don't know. It just comes to me. I don't know. Don't get upset. Sasha spoke apologetically, having noticed Arkadij starting to build a fire. Do you need help with that? No, I have done it plenty of times. I will be fine. Arkadij spoke with his eyes fixated on the fire and its preparation. Sit down and relax for a little. Once we get the fire going, we can eat, Arkadij said with a tone of compassion. Sasha took this opportunity to survey the factory. Perhaps something of use could be found here. It must be the case. After all, this was such a large place. 10 minutes or so passed and Sasha returned to the office, not able to find anything of use, but did come back to some good news nevertheless, as the fire was now in its full glory. Arkadij began to warm up the food. Sasha saw this and sat down near him, and hence near the entrancing flame. As the fire sparked, so did another conversation between the two boys. How long have you been in this village, Arkadij? Sasha asked the teen, mesmerized by the blaze. Longer than I remember, honestly. I came here when I was small with my other siblings. We all lost our parents to the war, and most of us were sent to the orphanage. But I ran away. I am beginning to think that was a mistake, though. Perhaps the orphanage would have been better than this. Arkadij said this as sadness perforated his voice. I was in the orphanage myself. Trust me, you aren't missing much. Though I will say it is better than the streets. Regardless, do you know this village well? Sasha redirected the conversation. Very well. Been here long enough. Know a lot about its history as well, because of the locals. A lot of them know me, and some of them even give me food every now and again, though I certainly wish it was a more common occurrence. Arkadij's voice was coated in melancholy as he continued on. There is a man that comes here often. He actually owns the village even, or subsidizes it or something like that, but I do know that he is wealthy and has many connections. I hear he is a good man, so I often dream of running into him. I dream of him befriending me and taking me away from here to his home. I know it's silly. I should have not even said anything, actually. Swimming in the ocean of sadness, the boy spoke. Do you know his name, Arkadij? Sasha asked with a heavy dose of curiosity. Yuri Fedorov. Everybody around here does. A rapid response. This was from the teen, indeed. What does he do, do you know? As far as his profession? Another inquiry was made by Sasha. Businessman or politician or something like that. Maybe both even. Something like that. While all of this conversing was taking place, the food neared its preparedness. I think the food is done now, Sasha. We dine like kings tonight, huh? Arkadij, Sasha once more in jest, spoke to Arkadij. I am glad you are able to joke around, Sasha. I don't mean that in a bad way. The teen said this sincerely, but with a defeated tone. How often does this man come exactly? Sasha steered the conversation once more. I don't know for sure. Maybe every 3 years or so. Not often enough for my liking, though. Arkadij finished the sentiment. Sasha began to contemplate about what Arkadij had just recently told him about the man. Sasha's vision of the man wasn't one resembling a dream, however, but rather one resembling a plan. If what Arkadij said was in fact true about this mysterious person, then perhaps Sasha could befriend Yuri for the both of them. Alexander, after all, was more than capable of interacting and outsmarting fully grown adults. The boys took their time eating while still conversing, even if only trivially. After the duo was done with the food, Arkadij rose to his feet and said, It's really late now, Sasha. We should get some sleep. I am tired, and I know you must be as well. The bed I have made in this office is big enough to fit us both." Arkadij motioned towards the makeshift bed in the corner of the office. The teen wasn't lying, as it was large enough to hold a whole family even. It was quite the impressive construct. Sasha acknowledged as much. "Well made this bed is. But you aren't going to try anything while we are together in it, are you?" Sasha said laughingly. "I am not even going to respond to that." Arkadij responded, startled. "Sorry, Arkadij. It is a sense of humour I picked up from someone I used to know." Sasha referenced and immediately recollected of Dmitri. The fire started to weaken, and the two were finished with their little exchange, and as they both lay down, while blanketed by complete silence. One fell asleep quickly, with the other one following suit shortly after. Both boys were now soundly asleep. Sasha is alone in a room while sitting on a chair. Total confusion overwhelms the boy, but as some time elapses, a door suddenly opens, and a man enters the confines. Sasha is no longer alone. The man's physiognomy is quite difficult to distinguish, as the room itself is hardly filled with light. However, some features are discernible. The man is bold, has gaunt cheeks, and speaks in a monotone, deep and almost calming voice. "You haven't forgotten about your great purpose now, have you, Mr. Sokolov?" Silence fills the room. "Many hurdles will be placed in front of you to preclude your efforts, but you must overcome them all, Mr. Sokolov. You must think unconventionally to succeed, Mr. Sokolov. Heed these words, and a great boon they will bring on to you." The man finishes the sentence and exits the room immediately after, as the already anemic effort of illumination becomes completely extinguished. Many days and nights would pass as the two boys rinsed and repeated the cycle. Wake up, head to the bazaar to find food, traverse the village in hopes of finding possible work, or even a more considerable shelter. However, only so much exposure could take place in one time, as Sasha, and to some degree his new friend, were still on the run from the authorities. The locals would react to Sasha in many different ways, ranging from sympathy to pity, reaching sometimes even detestation. The boys have gotten in plenty of fights with the local youth, some of whom were in village gangs. This complicated matters quite so, as these local gangs would often chase the two daring boys out of the village entirely, though of course the duo would eventually make their triumphant return every time. Still, Sasha had to formulate plans to negate the threat, and just that he did. Sasha would find a way to steal valuable items from the people inside the bazaar, and would then find a way to plant them on the gang members. Sasha would then leave the rest to his partner in crime, and he, in turn, would report the gang members to the original owners of the items. This had varying degrees of success, but did help ultimately, as the pressure from the gang members lessened, even if only marginally. Once, however, Sasha's mind and ideation took him to a rather diabolical place. There was one boy who was giving the duo quite the immeasurable trouble, and Sasha decided to deal with him in a more personal manner. In the forest, near where this troublemaker lived, Sasha sprung a trap, a pitfall of sorts. It took a considerable amount of time and energy to do this, but Sasha was very much committed. One day the creative Alexander would provoke the troublemaker to such extents that the troublemaker had no other choice but to chase the young and brave Sasha down, no matter the terrain. Into the forest the pair ran, one following the other, much like a predator would follow its prey only, of course. The roles were reversed in this specific instance. Committed and determined, the troublemaker had to get his hands on the elusive Sasha at last. Sasha was no slouch when it came to running, however, as he had quite the experience in this endeavour. The run went on for some time, up until the location of the trap had been finally reached. and the trap worked beautifully, more or less. You see, Mr. Sokolov's intent was to have the boy fall into the pitfall from which the young troublemaker would not be able to escape without the help of the young Sasha. This assistance would of course only come at a price, however. That price being the troublemaker leaving the duo of Alexander and Arkadij alone for good. This was very much the intent, but not all plans go accordingly. Yes, it was true that the hoodlum did fall into the pit, yet the part that wasn't quite so was that he was no longer able to carry a conversation of any kind. The unlucky young man had tripped, rather unfortunately and clumsily, right before he reached the pit, and landed on his neck instead of on his feet. Needless to say, the human anatomy did not come out on top on this occasion. Sasha now stared into the pitfall with the boy's lifeless body contorted inside. Fear? Panic? Uncertainty? What emotion did control Alexander at this very moment? The answer was none of the above. Sasha, without losing any composure, proceeded to bury the body in the pitfall. Sasha dug a deep hole for this pitfall, not realizing that it was destined to become the perfect grave. Murder, murder, murder. Not to the young boy, it wasn't. A series of unfortunate events, an accident, a miscalculation perhaps, but hardly murder. It sometimes happens, right? Sasha was unaffected, he was adamantine, he was now finished coating the body with dirt. Sasha walked out of the forest, making sure that nobody saw him while he erased the memory from his head, much like graphite is erased from paper by rubber. Summer 1961. Celebrations and festivities pervaded Elabug on this day, as it was the anniversary of the village's official establishment, with Yuri, the owner of the village, being the main guest of honour. His arrival was quite anticipated. His name could be heard amongst many of the conversations that took place on this day. It was a big deal for this little collective after all. Sasha and his trusted sidekick, Arkadij, were just as prepared. This very well may have just been the opportunity of a lifetime for the two boys, and they weren't planning on squandering it. Yuri Fedorov was scheduled to speak at the village's town square later on in the day, and this, in theory, was the perfect moment for the two buccaneers to make their move. For this occasion, the young Sasha concocted quite the devious little plan. With the help of his friend and the tale-bearing locals, the masterful Alexander was able to find out about a Q&A session for the children of this particular village, alongside other ones that resided within this region of the country. The questions were to be directed at the man of the hour himself and were concerning mostly village expansion. The questions, of course, were written by adults, but the locals thought it would be amusing to have the little ones perform the inquisition. This was the open door that Sasha needed as the time of the Q&A and the general presentation neared. All of the children that were to participate in the above-mentioned were already gathered around the main town square. With food, music, and much commotion surrounding the place, Sasha utilized this moment to poison one of the children so that he can take their place. Sasha became quite familiar with the local forests and the berries that grew inside. Sasha knew that some of the berries would produce quite the adverse effect once ingested. Stomach aches, diarrhea, and vomiting, to list just a few. Alexander crafted a potion of sorts, poisonous but not lethal, and added it to one of the boys' drinks when he wasn't looking. The children were not all known to the locals, as many were from different villages, so special, distinctive clothing was utilized, which differentiated them apart from the rest of the crowd. When the boy finally did consume the now spiked drink, the effects were near instantaneous. The boy had no other choice but to part ways with the main crowd and to seclude himself in the nearest outhouse. Sasha used this moment to follow the boy, knock him out, and take his clothing in order to fit in. To incapacitate the young fellow, Sasha used a serum used for anesthesia that he had lifted from the local infirmary. Of course, this was a common occurrence for the boys, to steal supplies they needed due to the situation they resided in. With the needle inserted deep into the neck, the illness-stricken teen fell over like a tree in a forest. Sasha, having fully become clad in his clothing, now returned to the town square. The time was finally here. The music was subdued, the food was